With the breakup of Maria Shriver and Arnold Schwarzenegger, people are asking me, will she ever be able to trust Arnold again? And the answer is highly doubtful. But to me, the relevant question there is, will she ever be able to trust again? Now, everybody's unique and different, but what I see over and over and over in women who've had men betray them is they have a difficult, challenging time trusting again. For women, trust takes it takes a while to heal a broken heart, to trust again. The whole idea of relationship, sexuality, intimacy is really about men coming into the world of women. Literally, sex. He goes into her world, which is for men, sex is women. Nobody's coming into his world. He's like eating out in a sense. So trust is not the major issue for men. But the major issue for women is trust, and it takes time to heal a broken heart, to trust again. Clearly, in my opinion, she'll never trust Arnold to be monogamous, and therefore she's decided to say that if you're not going to be monogamous, I don't want to be married to you. And clearly, the story goes that Arnold has a history of being with many, many women and all kinds of episodes here and there. Nobody ever knows the absolute facts of this, but Arnold comes from a tradition which women would look the other way if a man had affairs but was discreet. Also, Maria comes from a family where Kennedy men are notorious for having many women and their wives gracefully looking the other way and standing by their men in that way. And this is an old tradition. This is European. So that's all changing in Europe now. Everything's changing around the whole globe. Relationships for men and women are taking dramatic shifts. In Europe, the way they compensate is they're just not getting married. I mean, marriage is way down in Europe. It's also going way down in the United States. We're having 25% more people are not getting married. That's dramatic. On another level, only over 65% of all marriages, one of the two people is from a second marriage. This is their second or third marriage. When there's a second or third marriage person involved in a wedding, their chances are again about 65, 67% chance of divorce. And if there's a person with third marriage, it's up into the 80s and 90% divorce. So relationships is a huge crisis here, and there's certainly so many little things that build up and build up to big things, and then big things turn into infidelity because there's a lack of passion. And once there's infidelity, there's a lack of trust. And how do you rebuild trust is a real key issue. Divorce is a devastating experience for people. It's more devastating now than ever before. Well, of course, the history of divorce is just back in 1969. Before no-fault divorce was implemented and as a government procedure, no-fault divorce. Before that, you had to go before a judge. You had to say all these bad things. Divorce was at 10%. So marriage used to be a very strong institution where people stayed married for life. Unfortunately, they often stayed married and they probably shouldn't have stayed married. They were in dysfunctional relationships. They sacrificed a lot of happiness to be in that relationship. I know I was surprised back in the early 80s. I was teaching courses in the Philippines, and I was, all enthusiastic, innocent, teaching about love, and I'd recently got married and commitment and monogamy, and I was, just so innocent in the whole thing. And everybody would listen, and they'd all be inspired, and there'd always be this little giggle. And I said, "What's the giggle about?" Because everybody in the audience was having affairs. It was a very Catholic country. At least the people that came to my seminars are all very Catholic when they thought, don't have affairs, stay married for life. And their answer to staying married for life is to have lots of relationships because they knew they could not sustain passion and they wanted to sustain passion. They wanted passion in their lives. People want that. And they just don't know how to create that in a lasting relationship. If you ask any couple when they're getting married, if you could have these feelings of passion and attraction and love, wouldn't you like to be monogamous for a lifetime? And yes, the answer is yes. Yes, I would like that. And people who go, well, that's unrealistic, it's because they don't have role models. They don't have people where they've seen it happen. They hear what guys say, what women say, and so forth, and they don't believe. And belief is based on experience. Belief has to be based on reality. And the reality is, if we look historically, is people have not had lasting passion and relationships. And that's what we're wanting today. So the key is can she ever trust Arnold? No. Why? Because Arnold, and we don't know for sure this conversation, but without a doubt, in my mind, She probably said, look, this is the last straw. This is another, episode of your infidelity. If we're going to continue on, you have to promise me never, never again. And Arnold, like probably Tiger Woods, the same thing, say, well, no, I can't give that up. Because in their mind, with that much power and that much success and that much opportunity, and they're on the road, they're away from their wives, how can she expect him to not have sex? I mean, to a lot of people, men have sex once a week, married men. It's kind of the average, maybe twice a week once they're married. In the beginning, everybody's having lots of sex. But there's some men whose libido is so high that they want sex every day. And now he's going to go on a 2-week golfing tour. He's going to go make a movie for 3 months away from his family and children. He's got to have sex. His body says, I must have sex. So, in his mind, there's a justification, there's a rationalization. And if the woman wants a partner who's monogamous and faithful to her, then she deserves that. And they have to create the opportunity for that to happen. And what would that look like? Well, it would look like lots of visits back and forth. It would look like a lot of sharing about feelings. It would look like him having to not have sex every day if he's not with his wife every day. I remember counseling one billionaire. I was shocked, because he goes off to Japan to do these deals. And he says to his wife, he says, I want you to come. If you're not there, I'm going to be with the geisha. It was as simple as that, And she said, so I'm going on all the trips. That was their way of resolving the situation. And I was like surprised. But this goes on. And basically it's, what are you going to trust your partner to be? There's many women that trust their partners will be good providers, but they're not going to be faithful, and they're happy with that. But I'm telling you, once a woman can start to provide for herself, her needs emerge higher. She says, if I'm going to be able to have a career and my own life, which Maria Shriver certainly has her own career and her own life and her own ambitions, and she wants to make a difference in the world, then she has a need. And what she feels that need for is, if I'm going to be in a relationship with a man, I want to be number one. I want to be the special one. I want to give my juice to him and have him give his juice to me, and that's it. Because it feels good, and it does help you cut down stress, increase creativity. It's a magical experience if you can create it. It's just people don't know how to create it. So can she trust again? Will she get involved again? Will she get married again? That's a question people have. Well, she's already in her 50s. And what happens to women in their 50s is a shift takes place. And suddenly they're way more interested in making a difference in the world. Okay, on that level, they become much more global and more community oriented. I'm here to make a difference in the world. And that becomes more important than often their own personal needs for sexual intimacy. So is she going to be motivated to go find a man in order to balance out this stress of her life? If she doesn't understand that sex and intimacy happens as a major focus in our younger years, it's a foundation so that we can then expand to focusing on the world and making a bigger difference in our community and reaching out, selfless service to the world. All of that outward energy is based upon a foundation of relationship where we're getting our needs met. And it's challenging for women when they get into their 50s and 60s and they want to go out there and make a difference in the world, and they don't have that foundation. It takes 20 years to build that foundation, and boom, it's taken out. And now they have to do double the job. I've got to focus on getting a relationship, and what I want to do is get out there in the world. It can be done, but we have to be conscious of how to do it. Relationships don't have to be so difficult if we have a good teacher, which is why I've written this book, Venus on Fire, Mars on Ice, as well as all my coaching programs. Call up a telephone, Mars Venus telephone coach. Talk about what's going on. They will give you the information that's in my books, or listen to the tapes, or get educated. If it's not the Mars Venus relationship material, find somebody's relationship material, but don't ignore it. Don't assume, which is what everybody's doing. Why should I take a course in relationships? It's automatic. Because in the beginning it is automatic. And when the problems come up, we always blame somebody else. We need to remember, when one finger's pointing out, 3 fingers point back. And it's because of our ignorance today of how to make relationships work. And we have to just look, the writing's on the wall. It's happening everywhere. Failure, failure, failure. Relationships aren't working out. What can I do to make that change, rather than pointing the finger at somebody else? And if I have the belief system it's too difficult, or I can't trust a man, or I need to focus my energy on my children or my career, those are all excuses to avoid the most difficult but most important, meaningful task in our lives, which is to create a sustained, meaningful, personal relationship that will provide a support for us to then truly bring the best of us out into the world. So this is a bigger picture. But with information, we can create that bigger picture in our lives, and we're going to live longer, so we might as well create a bigger picture and be more fulfilled.